The deadly shooting at a Florida high school happened more than a month ago, but the killings rekindled debates that are still in progress.
What do we want? Gun control! Now!
What needs to happen now to keep students safe in our schools? Ideas include changing the way we build campuses and reaching out to colleges in Texas.
We have a charge from the governor to take a look at possible legislative recommendations to work with the governor's office.
And there's a new voice in the debate: students.
Most of our generation and most of the students who will be marching with us have just recently gotten the ability to vote.
Meet some young Texans trying to shape the future of the gun debate ahead on State of Texas. Good morning and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Phil Prazen in for Josh Hinkle. The deadly shootings last month at a high school in Parkland, Florida put a new emphasis on school security across the country. A lot of the ideas have focused on guns. And there are ongoing arguments over proposals to beef up background checks and add new restrictions to gun purchases. Others want to let teachers and faculty carry weapons on campus to protect students. But some people are taking a different approach, looking at the way we build our schools. A campus under construction in Abilene gives us an example of security by design. With school safety on everybody's mind lately, it can be easy to forget that sometimes school safety can start before a school is even built, like at the new Wiley East campus. At Cadco Architects Engineers, designing safe schools has been a priority for years.
When you're talking about school security, and this has been on the forefront of our designs for the last almost 25 years.
Those features can be either passive or active.
And active would be things like to be able to control and lock down certain academic wings, say from the secretary's desk, should there be some sort of a disturbance, to passive measures such as controlling access to the building through either burglar-resistant glass or locking systems or security vestibules if they have to check in and things such as this.
No matter whether it's active or passive, features work hand in hand to keep schools safe. But it's about more than just building a secure structure.
Schools need to be designed to enhance learning. We don't want the students to feel like they're in a penitentiary or a prison environment. And so we have to design buildings that are not only safe but creative and foster a learning environment.
After the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, Governor Greg Abbott ordered the Texas Education Agency to take immediate action to ensure safety in Texas schools. But the governor did not stop there. He also sent a similar order to the board that oversees college campuses in Texas. The governor sent a letter to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Commissioner Raymond Paredes. He ordered a series of steps to ensure that junior college districts are meeting all requirements and have the best information available to help keep their campuses safe. Steps including making sure campuses are up to date on school safety audits. That includes reviews of their emergency operations plan. And the board is charged with sharing information from the Texas School Safety Center. That information is widely used by elementary, middle, and high school campuses. And the governor ordered the board to draft recommendations to the Texas legislature on policy changes to keep students safe. Joining us now for an in-depth look at the response to the governor's letter is Raymond Paredes. He's the commissioner of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Thanks for joining us.
I'm delighted to be here.
First, let's just start off about what role your organization has when it comes to campus security.
Well, we haven't had much of a role until now. We know that there is legislative language or statutory language that requires institutions of higher education to do certain things, to audit their ability to keep students and faculty and staff safe, whether they're keeping up with the latest information about campus safety. But more than that, we really haven't done until we received this letter from the governor.
What have you done, and then what are the next steps?
Well, the first thing we did was try to figure out what the governor had in mind when he sent us a letter. And we have sent 2 letters to campuses. The first one we sent to community colleges that seem not to have completed their audit that was due 3 years ago. And we found out that actually most of them had finished. They just hadn't reported the information to the Texas School Safety group. And we also sent another letter to remind campuses that they have to do the audit every 3 years, and the next one is due September 15th of this year.
And what is that Texas School Safety Center, the information that goes there? Why is that important?
Well, it's a clearinghouse that was created precisely to gather information about school safety, about the latest research, about the latest practices that are being conducted around the country, to make sure that our campuses are well aware of all the latest developments related to student safety and are implementing them to the extent possible.
Now, anything in government takes resources and tax dollars to fund it, but are you getting enough of them, do you think, to tackle this issue, or at least for now, and then I guess where you want to go with the problem?
We have a charge from the governor to take a look at possible legislative recommendations, to work with the governor's office, to work with the school safety center, to work with the DPS. And so we don't know yet whether we will make recommendations regarding practices that might cost more, but I expect that we won't. I think we expect institutions to keep their safety for students and faculty and staff at high levels without an increase in state appropriations. Just change practices, be more diligent.
There's been a lot of talk around the country about arming teachers, I guess, in K through 12. What are we seeing in that realm of possibility in higher education? I know there is already campus carry. What are you seeing on the ground when it comes to that?
It's still very early. We're still in the process of thinking about ways in which we can respond to recent events in Florida and other places. I haven't heard anybody talk about teachers carrying weapons in a formal way. I've heard informal discussions about this, but I don't think any political leaders in the state have come out and said we should do this or do that. Part of our process will be to gather information about the latest effective practices, and if that's an issue that we need to take a look at, we will. And
campus carry, or I guess already allows somebody with a handgun license to carry on university campus anyway, so is it kind of already happening if they want to?
Practices differ from campus to campus. Campuses have some discretion how they implement the law. So some campuses have more easily met standards for carrying weapons than other campuses do. So that might be one of the things we have to take a look at, because one of the charges from the governor is not only to look at community colleges, but also to look at private institutions, for-profit institutions, and universities as well.
Now, do you think most of this is just sharing information of what's already available, or looking for more information, or are there going to be needs for more people, more security guards, kind of nuts and bolts, actually tangible resources in this?
I think it's both. I think our first obligation is make sure that campuses are aware of all the research that's been put together by the School Safety Center, and to make sure that we're compliant with best practices as they currently exist, and also to take a look at things that we might want to do in Texas that are specific to our needs in this state.
And people in K through 12 might know of the idea of active shooter drills, or emergency drills. Are we doing that on Texas campuses? And if not, do you think that we should be doing that?
I think we're going to take a close look, and we're going to see how widespread that practice is, and if we think it's something that needs to be done on every campus, we will take a look at that and consider making a recommendation to the governor.
Commissioner, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Despite outrage over a string of deadly mass shootings, many people believe that nothing changes when it comes to gun laws, but gun laws have changed in Texas. We'll show you how lawmakers responded to tragedies and why it's not the way some people expected. Now, some young Texans are trying to chart a different path.
I think that one thing that people will take seriously is the fact that we are now actively participating in the democracy that we've grown up in.
Students inspired to act in the wake of the Parkland shooting now make plans for a rally in Austin, and their goals go beyond one march.
We want to educate students. We want to register new voters, kids like us who just recently turned 18 or who are turning 18.
Hear from the students trying to shape the future gun debate ahead on State of Texas. One refrain we hear after mass shootings like Parkland or Sutherland Springs is that nothing changes when it comes to gun laws. People look back to the 2014 school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, where a gunman killed 26 students and teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary School. The tragedy seemed likely to drive the cause of gun control. That's not what happened. But But to say that nothing changed after Newtown is not quite true. Gun laws did change in many parts of the country, and here in Texas, lawmakers made many changes, almost all of them to loosen restrictions on guns. Now more people can carry guns into more places. In 2015, state lawmakers passed a bill allowing people over the age of 21 to carry guns on college campuses. The person must have a license to carry, and they have to keep those guns hidden from view. Texas lawmakers also passed a bill to allow open carry. That law lets people who have a permit carry a handgun openly. Previously, state law forced permit holders to conceal their guns. Some Texas lawmakers are also pushing what they call a constitutional carry bill. That would give all Texans the right to openly carry a firearm with or without a permit. Supporters argue that Americans have a constitutional right to carry guns and should not be forced to take a course or pay a fee to exercise that right. Those measures failed in the Texas legislature in both 2015 and 2017. This idea is not unique to Texas. Right now, 10 other states already allow constitutional carry. But there's a new force in the push for restrictions on guns and gun sales: students. The Parkland students earned nationwide attention for speaking out after the deadly shootings at their school. Now fellow students around the country and here in Austin are taking action.
I saw them and I thought to myself, we can do this, we can really do this.
We'll meet the local students planning a rally here in Austin and looking to build something bigger.
March is great for drawing awareness for activism, but it's more than just marching that causes actual policy change.
Students looking to make a difference, next on State of Texas. Since the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida, young students have taken a vocal role in advocating for change in our nation's gun laws. And much of the action has taken the form of school walkouts. It's been happening around the country and here in Austin. Students at Anderson High School staged a walkout in the week after the shootings. They observed 17 minutes of silence in honor of the 17 victims in Florida. Student protests have reached beyond high schools. Students at Bailey Middle School and Small Middle School in Austin also staged walkouts to call for gun reform. But some students are trying to move the cause beyond their campuses. Students from Parkland started planning March for Our Lives, a rally in March 24th in Washington, D.C. to call for school safety and gun control. That inspired students in other parts of the country to start planning their own events to show support for the cause. And for perspective, we're joined by students who are organizing Austin's March for Our Lives rally. Jack Kappelman, Connor Heffernan, and Kari Siegenthaler are students at Austin's Liberal Arts and Science Academy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Kari, let's start with you. Just tell me how this thing got started.
So I think the Friday after the Parkland shooting, Connor reached out to Jack and I and was like, we need to do something. We need to organize something, some type of demonstration. And Jack and I immediately responded and we were like, yes, like, how does this happen? When do we start? Like, what logistics need to be figured out? And so from that Friday, we just wanted to do something small, we thought at first, like maybe get 200 high school students involved. And so we started planning things, and then things just really took off from there. And once we saw the March for Our Lives had been created by the Parkland students, that really inspired us to create a March for Our Lives in Austin, because we knew that there would be public demand for it. And so we created the event on the Sunday after the shooting, and then from there it just really took off.
And Connor, what connected with you after the shooting that made you decide to do something about it?
Well, on that Friday after the shooting, I was watching a show that I just normally watch on every Friday afternoon, and I saw the Parkland students really speaking out for their safety. They wanted to make a difference. They wanted to make a change. And I was like, I saw them, and I thought to myself, we can do this. We can really do this. So that's what kind of got me started and just built my interest in wanting to host this march. And then like Kari was saying earlier, I contacted everyone I know, and Jack and Kari really just chomped at the bit and really wanted to get a set of logistics just hammered out, which kind of startled me at first, I'm not going to lie about that. But it's just been great to see how far we've come since then.
Yeah, and Jack, tell me about what's going to happen and who's all going to be there.
Yeah, so the march is planning to start at City Hall at around noon on that Saturday. And from there, we will be marching to the Capitol, hopefully leaving City Hall by around 12:20 at the latest. Once we're at the Capitol, we'll go on to Capitol grounds, and there at around 1:30, we'll have our guest speakers who will talk about how to get involved in the movement, ways to continue this past the march, because a march is great for drawing awareness for activism, but it's more than just marching that causes actual policy change.
What's the best case scenario in your opinion of this? You know, is it just to draw attention to the issue, or do you want something to happen after this?
We want to see long-term change. So obviously just a march isn't going to tangibly change anything, but what we hope to do with the march is keep this issue present in the public's minds and make politicians aware that there are so many citizens across the entire United States who want to see change on this issue. We aren't calling for anti-gun anything, rather we're just calling for common sense gun laws. But stemming from the march, we hope to create a student group. There's a group right now called Moms Demand Action. We're thinking of possibly starting a group called Students Demand Action. We want to educate students. We want to register new voters, you know, kids like us who just recently turned 18 or who are turning 18. And we hope to really change the tide of how things are going in response to this issue, to make schools safer and to make the entire United States safer.
And Connor, the gun debate is probably one of the nastiest debates to get into, you know, in the last couple of years. Have you personally, or you know, people in your organization or in your group, seen any pushback via online or just people who have, you know, argued against you?
So far, it's been a really pleasant surprise. We haven't seen that much pushback, at least not on our Facebook page. That said, I personally anticipate that there will be some counter-protester presence. Austin is the state capital, and so everyone wants to advocate for their own beliefs. But in the event of counter-protesters, we'll have an APD presence. We will have volunteers who are trained in de-escalation techniques and are really just there to keep the peace. And that's all we want. I personally trust everyone at this demonstration, no matter what side you're on, to keep it peaceful and to not get confrontational and to not get violent.
And Jack, imagine I'm a skeptic here, and you know, here you are, 3 high school seniors. What about this event and you all should we take seriously? If somebody is like, you're high school seniors, why are you doing this? Are you going to make a difference? What do you say to that?
Well, so I think it's really important to note that while we are high school seniors, most of our generation and most of the students who will be marching with us have just recently gotten the ability to vote. I personally will be registering to vote at the event. And I think that the fact that our generation has been, in a lot of ways, shut down by politicians, told that our opinion doesn't necessarily matter in the gun debate, even though it very directly affects us on a day-to-day basis. I think that one thing that people will take seriously is the fact that we are now actively participating in the democracy that we've grown up in. And nobody can take that away from us. And furthermore, we are not trying, again, to take anybody's guns away. We're just trying to be safe in our own schools, because school is where we spend the majority of our time. And to go to school on a day-to-day basis and think this could end badly is just not healthy for us as students.
Well, Jack, Connor, Kari, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with your march.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's our time for State of Texas. Remember, you can catch us every Sunday morning here on KXAN. Now stay tuned for Meet the Press coming up at 9. I'm Phil Prazin. Thank you for joining us this morning.